We should never allow the legitimate concerns of our communities about illegal migration to breed prejudice and hatred towards our fellow Africans. We must not allow these concerns to give rise to xenophobia, to give rise to hatred that is directed towards people from other African countries.
It is important to understand that this brutal speech was made by South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa after painful attacks on African migrants in South Africa. President Ramaphosa speaks with courage and truth. This message is for all Africans. Stay with us and subscribe to African Spotlight for stories that matter across our continent. Now watch.
We do not walk alone in this freedom, fellow South Africans. And we did not walk into this freedom on our own. We were carried by a tide of solidarity from the nations of the world, from the nations of Africa. These countries opened their borders to our liberation fighters. When the apartheid government was pursuing our liberation fighters, they ran to a number of countries around the world, but especially on our continent. They shared their stories with our neighbors, and our neighbors shared their spaces with them, and they gave them safety. They even fed them. They gave them bread, and they opened their homes. They spoke for us when we could not speak for ourselves. They took risks so that we could be free. Their countries were bombed. Their nationals were killed. And all that they did for our sake as well. They supported our freedom. The leaders and the people of Africa kept our freedom alive and our struggle for freedom alive. It cannot be and must never be that we trample into the dust the African fellowship that made our freedom possible. We are a people who live the value of Ubuntu. We should never allow the legitimate concerns of our communities about illegal migration to breed prejudice and hatred towards our fellow Africans. We should not allow that to happen. Yes, we all have concerns, as many other countries in the world have concerns about undocumented and illegal migrants. We must not allow these concerns to give rise to xenophobia, to give rise to hatred that is directed towards people from other African countries or any parts of the world. We are South Africans. We cannot be driven by hatred towards others. Others gave us compassion. They gave us support. And we cannot be driven by hatred towards them. Instead, we must insist that the law of our country be upheld and enforced. That is why we are clamping down on illegal migration and on businesses that flout the law by hiring undocumented persons at the expense of our citizens. I spoke about this during the State of the Nation address. We are actively rooting out corruption in our immigration system. We know that a number of people who have come in illegally into our country were allowed by some, not all, officials who have had corrupt tendencies. We will not allow people to take the law into their own hands. We extend hospitality to those who are guests in our country with the expectation that generosity is honored with respect for our society and its laws. And we say to those who are here legally, respect us as South Africans, respect our laws, respect our conventions and our traditions, as you would want us to respect the laws and traditions of your own country. As a nation that defeated colonialism and apartheid through international solidarity, we carry a responsibility to advance constitutional values beyond our borders. So we then therefore say, yes, let us allow our laws to take their course. We have already set in place the way in which we will be able to deal with those who are in our country illegally. We remain committed to multilateralism, to respect for international law and principled diplomacy. International law was born from the devastation of global conflict. It is a shield for all countries in the world, regardless of their size or influence. True multilateralism demands respect for diversity while remaining firm in the core principles of sovereignty, of human rights, of freedom, of accountability, and peaceful coexistence. This Freedom Day, which we cherish so much, stands as a reminder that political liberation was never the final destination. It was the beginning of a longer journey towards economic freedom and social justice. Let us continue working together, sparing neither strength nor courage, to complete the unfinished task, which is the realization of our freedom that is grounded in justice, in dignity, and prosperity for all. Our future will not be built by forgetting where we come from, but by acting with courage on what we have learned, united by one constitution, bound by a collective responsibility to each other, and in pursuit of a shared destiny. The freedom that we are celebrating today belongs to all of us. And I've often said, this freedom we have won also freed those who were our oppressors, because as they were oppressing us, they themselves did not have real freedom. And today, all of us are free, but we now need to work harder so that all of us can enjoy the real fruits of the freedom we struggle for. This freedom does not belong to one party. It does not belong to one generation. It belongs to all the people of South Africa, past, present, and future. So let us protect it. Let us uphold this freedom. Let us live by it. 27th of April, 1994, South Africa was born. The morning of the 27th April did not begin like any other ordinary day. It began with great anticipation, excitement, and a determination by millions of South Africans to participate in the birth of a new nation. I'm sure for those who were there and were able to vote at the time, the moment the sun rose, all of us felt that there was magic and electricity in the atmosphere. Before sunrise, millions of our people stood in long queues. They were young and old, rural and urban, black and white. Many were exposed to the weather elements, such as rain and burning sun, but they waited with patience, pride, and dignity to cast their votes for the very first time. It was on a day like today, the 27th of April. More than 20 million South Africans participated in the election, an election that was peaceful, an election that was fair. It was a celebration of the human spirit and its capacity to overcome adversity. It is an honor to mark this occasion here in Bloemfontein, Mangaung, where the flame of freedom was lit. It was here in Mangaung that the African National Congress was born in 1912. Thousands, mostly women and children, died in those concentration camps here. Their suffering stands as a shared, though unevenly remembered chapter of South Africa's past, one that calls for remembrance, honesty, and humanity. When we hear about concentration camps during the Anglo-Boer War, we often hear about how the Afrikaners suffered mostly. We never hear about the thousands of Africans who died in the concentration camps of hunger, of disease, and of losing their possessions and being displaced. This is a province, the Free State, with a history of courageous resistance. Women from the then Orange Free State were amongst the first to rise against the extension of the past laws in 1913, with protests breaking out in Jagersfontein, in Wynberg, and also here in Bloemfontein. They were arrested and imprisoned, and their families were left without caregivers. Instead of being broken, the women of the Orange Free State today, became more determined because they would not accept a system that denied them dignity and freedom. And today we celebrate that here in the Free State, the struggles that were waged by the women of the Free State, and indeed in many other parts of our country, have succeeded. And today, here in the Free State, we have a woman premier who is an inheritor of the struggles that were waged. Me premier ra o leboha ebile re leboha le mesebetsi o e etsang o le premier ya Free State. A re re malibongwe. Minister Mackenzie This was the site of, in this province, of the Witshoek Peasants' Revolt of 1950. The peasants and farmers of Witshoek revolted against the apartheid government's oppressive land control policies. This was one of the most significant acts of resistance in rural South Africa. The revolt was about the livelihood of rural people regarding their cattle, their wealth, their security, their identity, their land, and their dignity that an oppressive government wanted to destroy. The Witshoek Peasants' Revolt demonstrated that the struggle for freedom was also fought in the valleys, in the fields, and in the hearts of rural communities. It was fought by farmers in the rural areas, by families and ordinary people who chose courage over silence. It was in this province that the people of this province, in a town called Brandfort, took Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela into their hearts and gave her comfort when she was banished away from her home in Johannesburg to Brandfort in 1977. History is often told through great speeches and great events, but sometimes history is most told in a powerful way through the chapters that are written by ordinary people who choose humanity over fear. When Mama Winnie Mandela was banished to Brandfort, the apartheid rulers thought they were isolating her, but they also thought that they were breaking her spirit. And they also thought that they would extinguish her influence. The people of Brandfort, a small town in this province, did something quite remarkable. They did not let that voice to fade. They carried it forward. They strengthened that voice, Ya Mama Winnie Mandela, and they made it their own. They united in compassion, and that became stronger than the system of apartheid itself. Last month we laid to rest a son of this province, the first premier of the Free State, and a stalwart of the liberation struggle, Ntate Musiwa Teralikota. He was a brave and principled leader who served this country with distinction. So Mona Freistata, ke province ya dinatla. This is a province that has been blessed with people who are courageous, people who fought for our freedom, people who resisted oppression. And it is fitting that today we should hold our Freedom Day here in this place where the spirit of freedom was born, here in this place where the people of the Free State waged a struggle against oppression and apartheid. Now, on this Freedom Day, we honor the memory of all those here in the Free State who fought. And today we recall the words of our first democratically elected president, who at his inauguration, when he said, "The time for healing the wounds of the past has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us. On that first day of our freedom as a nation, we entered into a social contract together as a nation to build a society that's anchored in human dignity, in equal rights, and in freedom for all. 30 years ago, the Constitution of our Republic, the legal foundation of that contract, was signed into law. That Constitution became our birth certificate as a nation. Our Constitution, which is widely regarded around the world as one of the most progressive, visionary, and influential constitutions ever adopted, is a powerful promise about freedom and stands as our collective shield protecting the freedom our people fought for. Tukuluho ena erina lenyona eri fumaning katsatilau vote. Out of struggle came freedom. Through our Constitution, we have entrenched that freedom. It is the unshakable foundation of our nation. We have come far as a nation. We stand here today not only as citizens of a democratic nation, but as custodians of a hard-won legacy of freedom. A legacy won in struggle. A legacy shaped by sacrifice. A legacy shaped by courage and an unbreakable belief in freedom and justice. That is the legacy we have. Tukulu ena erina linyona babang bane basa kholwi. There was a time in this country when freedom was not a right but a dream. There was a time in this country when a few people were free and were regarded as citizens. Many were not free. It was a time when voices of many people were silenced, where dignity was denied to millions who were excluded from the life of the country that they called home. But our people refused to accept that fate. They organized, they resisted, they endured, and they finally won their freedom. And in that struggle, they made a simple but powerful declaration that the people of South Africa shall be free, and that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. When freedom came, it was not a political transition. It was a moral transformative moment. And at the center of that transformation stands our Constitution. It is not just a legal document. It is a shield against injustice, a foundation for unity, a foundation for equality, a promise to every citizen that through it, South Africa will never be governed by exclusion. Dignity will never be denied to the citizens of South Africa, and freedom will never be reserved for a few. Our freedom that we are celebrating today resulted, and the right to speak that we have resulted from struggle. The right to move around and to belong resulted from struggle. In the past, you all know we were not allowed to move anywhere where we wanted, to live anywhere where we wanted, to work anywhere where we wanted. The freedom that we won on this day 32 years ago freed us. It unleashed the possibility for us to enjoy the freedom that we have. The right to live with dignity was won when we won our freedom. Our Constitution ensured that freedom is not a slogan, but a live reality. In the 32 years of our democracy, we have built a progressive constitutional democracy, firmly anchored in the rule of law, with an independent judiciary that serves as a guardian of the rights for all. We have expanded access to housing, to healthcare, to education, to water and electricity on an unprecedented scale. We have transformed our education system that was used as a weapon to perpetuate oppression, making sure that universal access to education was denied to the majority of our people. Freedom has now made it possible that we have universal access to education, and we have done so by opening up the doors of learning. Our children, many of them now go to no-fee schools. Go sa patalwa school fees dikolong tse ngata ka hobane ka freedom ena. We have especially expanded that access to education to the poor and to working class parents and households. Our national school nutrition program now feeds more than 9 million learners every single day. In some schools, twice a day. Bana ba ja ha ba ya dikolong, bana ba kena dikolo hantle, re ntse re nyolla thuto ya bana ba rona. Freistata mona for dilemo tse 5, Freistata e ne ntse e tswa number 1 for the matric results. E tla khutlela hona mono hape. Through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, we have made tertiary education accessible to students from low-income households. Bana ba rona ba bangata ba kena di college, di university. University ya Freistata mona, ne ile university ya makgowa fela. Ho setse ho kena batho ba bantsho ka bongata ba bona. Ba etsa tjena ka hobane ka NSFAS mmuso ona wa ba thusa. Last year we recorded the highest matric pass rate in the history of South Africa. Freistata e tswile number 2. E tla khutlela ho number 1 hape. Eo ke a e tseba. Since the dawn of our democracy, we have steadily worked to expand access to quality healthcare for all. We have built clinics and hospitals, provided free healthcare to pregnant women and young children, as promised by Ntate Nelson Mandela. We have reduced child mortality and increased life expectancy. Now we are working together to establish the National Health Insurance, the NHI, so that every person in this country has equal access to quality health care, regardless of their ability to pay. We are making progress on land reform, restoring land to many of those who were dispossessed of their land since the introduction of the 1913 Native Land Act. And we are continuing to support productive lives for many families who work the land. The Free State is one of the provinces that is leading the country in providing comprehensive agricultural support to emerging and aspiring farmers. Over the last 32 years, we have used our broad-based black economic empowerment policies to expand the participation of black South Africans, of women, and people with disability in the economy. People who were legally and by convention prevented from participating meaningfully in the economy of their country are now able to participate in a more meaningful way in the economy of their country. The women of our country are now participating in quite a significant way in the economy of our country. And all this happens because we won our freedom on the 27th of April in 1994. We have begun to redress the economic injustices of our past, expanding ownership, expanding control, and the management of the economy beyond just a privileged few. The progress we have made is evident in the improvements in the income and quality of life of Africans, colored, and Indian South Africans, and the gradual reduction in income equality between the races. But this is not enough, as we all know. There is much more that needs to be done. Jega me premier na cho akota President Mandela Are, I have climbed this hill, and as I look around the vista, I can see there are many more hills to climb. There are many more rivers to cross. That is why we are working to strengthen our policies, particularly to strengthen our BEE policies, to make them more effective, more efficient, to ensure that they actually deliver the fundamental changes that our economy needs. And we do so also by training our young people, by making sure that we train them for the jobs that they will work in. Dignity means that people must be able to also live free from the fear of violence and crime. To give greater effect to our freedom, we have dedicated greater resources and effort to tackling organized crime, gangsterism, gender-based violence, and other forms of violent crime. We are reforming and strengthening the criminal justice system. We are rooting out corruption and building a police service and a prosecuting authority in which people can have trust and confidence.
President Ramaphosa's words remind us that Africa is one family. In times of struggle, African nations opened their doors to South Africans. They offered shelter, food, and hope. Today, he calls on South Africans to reject hatred and embrace unity. Yes, laws must be respected, and illegal immigration must be handled properly. But no one should be humiliated, attacked, or treated with cruelty on our streets. This is bigger than South Africa. It is about who we are as Africans. Are we choosing unity, or are we allowing division to tear us apart? Ramaphosa's speech is a powerful call for compassion, justice, and respect for human dignity. What do you think about his message? Can this help heal the growing tensions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in African unity, subscribe to African Spotlight, turn on the notification bell, and stay connected for more important stories from across our great continent.